at 4 o'clock p.m. If we could go ahead and introduce ourselves, starting with Elizabeth.
Elizabeth Edwardson, Associate Planner for the city.
Kyle Kearns, Director of Community Development for the city.
Jeff Roots, the Planning Commission.
Lee Tao, Commission Member.
Madeline Palmquist, District 8 Alderperson, Commission Member.
Eric Doven, Commission Member.
Matt Zacher, Mayor and Chairperson.
Dennis Pollock, Alderman, number 6.
Thank you. Item 1, approval of report from February 3rd, 2025 Planning Commission meeting. Commission, what are your wishes?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
I get a motion by Doven, seconded by Tao. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, go ahead. Oh,
I just want to note, Mayor, we do have a couple people on the Zoom meeting, one of which is Katie Bailey, the Plan Commission member.
thank you. So anybody else that we need to refer to or no?
We have an applicant on as well, and for one of the items, and we'll make sure to let you know what item that is.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Seeing no questions or comments, go ahead and cast your votes.
Aye.
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 Did I do that right?
We don't have voters.
We don't have voters. Okay.
For those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Katie? Katie, are you able to hear me or no? Katie, are you there?
Hi, yes, I am.
Okay. I'll just ask you for your vote, yay or nay.
Yay.
All right. I got 6 ayes, 0 nays. Item 2, public hearing and action on a request from Wisconsin Rapids Industrial Property LLC to amend Chapter 11 zoning ordinance, specifically Appendix A, to allow general repair to the heavy industrial M2 district with a conditional use permit. Mr. Kearns?
Thank you, Mayor. So this item is, again, an ordinance amendment to basically reclassify general repair within our current ordinance. You can see on the screen that right now general repair is a permitted use within the B1 and the B2 district, and it's conditional in the M1 district. We have an applicant that will describe further in the next item that has property and would like to open their business in an M2 district where it is not permitted or it's prohibited. From a review standpoint, you'll see in the staff memo that we don't have a ton of M2 area. Most of the M2 zoned area is within the downtown or adjacent to the downtown, much of it being on the west side, the paper mill property, and then the other being on the northeast side along Spring Street and the railroad tracks. That's important to mention because M2 is supposed to be heavy industrial, and that's why the paper mill was zoned M2, but we don't have it in many other instances, aside from some, again, property closer to downtown. And so when we think of general repair, the definition was here in that it's a place where goods like bicycles, appliances, and businesses are repaired. And given the M2 district being relatively close to the downtown, we do feel as though that it's not going to be a hindrance, and it would be fitting to amend it and allow it as a conditional use in the M2 district, very similar to what it is in the M1 district. Therefore, we are requesting approval of this ordinance amendment by the applicant to reclassify it as a conditional use in the M2 district. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, and the applicant is available on Zoom as well. Thank you. Yeah, or you can ask the Plan Commission if they have questions.
Before I open it up to a public hearing, are there any questions from the commission? All right, seeing none, I'm gonna go ahead and open it up to a public hearing at 4:05. And for the first time, I ask if there's anybody who wants to speak for or against. Yes, sir. Please state your name and address if you would, please. Yes, make sure the green light is on. There's a push button in the middle. That'll turn that on for you.
Okay, James Feedy, 3420 Mall Drive. I'm actually from Eau Claire, but, so I've worked with the property owner on this building in the past. I've worked with several sites kind of like this in the past too, where they're set up as a heavy industrial type use, and just, you know, of course it was a foundry, and appreciate the history of it, but, you know, it's just time for that next life. So he's purchased the building, looking at using it for other uses to it, some of them being kind of reviving it, getting some business, bring some more business back downtown. So we think it'll be good use. It's mainly going to be light use, a lot lighter than what was done before. And so just appreciate the approval of it so we can continue to, you know, create some activity down there. Thank you.
Thank you. Second time, I open the floor. Anybody wishing to speak for or against? And a third time, opening the floor. Anyone wishing
This
to
is-
speak? Go ahead.
This is Brian Semlane on a Zoom call. I'm the owner of WR Industrial Property, the applicant.
Okay.
Just nothing really to add, just saying I'm on the call and you've got the info on the application. So obviously I'm the one applying, and just want to let you know I'm on the call and appreciate your consideration.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks for joining us. Just finishing up the public hearing to anybody in the audience who, or anywhere else who wants to speak for or against. All right. Seeing none, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing at 4:07 p.m. and open it back up to the commission for questions. Yes.
I don't have a question. I just want to state that this is an amendment to our code that allows a lighter use in a heavy industrial area, which I think is a welcomed case. We currently have very few heavy industrial areas, and allowing people who are interested in investing in our city the ability to be able to find and utilize that space, whatever we can do to help them, is beneficial. So I would say motion to approve the amendment to Chapter 11 zoning ordinance as it's outlined in Appendix A.
I got a motion by Palmquist to approve. I got a second by Marutz. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Katie?
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it, 6-0. Item 3, public hearing and action, a request from Wisconsin Rapids Industrial Property LLC for a conditional use permit to establish general repair at 80 Oliver Street, parcel 3405505, which falls within the heavy industrial M2 district. Mr. Kearns?
So with regards to the last request, if general repair is now allowed within the M2 district, the applicant has to get a conditional use permit, again, per the action that just occurred. So this is the applicant requesting that conditional use permit. So they've submitted an application. We've conducted a review of the 9 items or the 9 criteria for conditional uses. I'll note a few things about the property. So a warehouse currently operates within the building. It was formerly owned by Northern Steel Castings, where they did some of their storage and warehousing. It's about 34,000 square feet in one building. In the second building, it's about 6,800 square feet. Again, the applicant is looking to operate a kind of general repair, furniture repair business, including restoration work within the facility. Now they could potentially do that with the approval of the ordinance amendment. Most of the surrounding properties are zoned M2 heavy industrial. There is some residential to the north and to the south. Again, it's really a pocket, as the previous zoning map showed, a pocket of M2 here. You'll see the use again defined below as well and in the staff report. So in looking at some of the standards of review, we do feel as though the property is appropriately sized, even though it does have additional uses, a warehouse use currently. We feel as though parking is met, there's enough parking on site, the hours of operation are appropriate for the use and should not impact adjacent residential neighborhoods. It is on a fairly main thoroughfare, north and south. Therefore, we are recommending that the conditional use permit be approved to operate that general repair business at this property, subject to the 3 conditions outlined on the presentation in the staff report. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I open it up to the public hearing, does the commission have any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and open up for a public hearing at 4:11 p.m. At this time, is there anyone who wants to speak for or against?
I could just kind of ditto, say the same thing, but if you need me to.
It's up to you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of the same comments, just trying to create some new business downtown, add some things. It's a way lighter use. I appreciate the comment there because it's been one of our things, lighter use and being done for currently in the building. So thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. Open the floor again to anybody for or against.
Hi, my name is Mark Larson. I own a commercial building at 1341 2nd Street North. The only question I would have, and it's not that I oppose it at all, I'm actually happy to see this building being used. My only question would be that I'm assuming if there's furniture repair, there's going to be a certain generation of solvents and chemicals used for stripping or anything like that. I would just ask the city and the new owners to make sure that they're dealing with the environmental concerns involved in furniture, in varnish, solvents, thinners, xylene, all those potential chemicals. So as long as we can be assured, I think that there will be some mitigation involved in that, because there will be some industrial waste involved. I would be extremely welcoming of the development. Thank you.
Thank you. And for a third time, anyone wishing to speak for or against? All right. I will close the public hearing at 4:13 p.m. and open it back up to the commission for questions or comments.
I guess I just had maybe a question, or maybe with the applicant online, maybe give them an opportunity to respond to that concern by the citizen about environmental.
Yeah, this is Brian. I guess I'm not aware of any environmental concerns with the tenant that we have wanting to move in. I would think anything for repair with upholstery would be significantly less pollution than a industrial heavy foundry like was there in the past. So I guess I would see it as a dramatically less potential for any pollution than would have been there with the foundry. So, but offhand, I'm not aware of any environmental concerns or pollution with the tenant that we're moving in.
Thank you. Any other questions or concerns? Seeing none, what are your wishes?
Motion to approve item 3405505.
I'll second.
I got a motion to approve and a second by Palmquist, a second by Davin. Any other questions, comments? Yes.
Just wanted to confirm that that was with the 3 conditions that are recommended by staff.
Correct, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, seeing no further questions or comments, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Right.
Aye. Katie?
Aye.
All right. All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it, 6-0. Thank you. Item 4, public hearing and action on a request from Wisconsin Rapids Public Schools for an amendment to the city's comprehensive plan, specifically map 7-2 future land use map to reclassify 2911 Washington Street, parcel ID 3410239, from a mixed land use classification of parks and open space and governmental public institutional to a governmental public institutional land use classification and reclassify an adjacent unaddressed parcel, parcel 3410243, from a residential land use classification to a governmental public and institutional land use classification. Mr. Kearns.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to preface that the next 5 items on the agenda all pertain to the school district. 3 of them are conditional uses, and the one that we're looking at now, number 4 and number 5, involve Washington School. I'd like to speak to 4 and 5 together, but they will require separate action on the agenda. So the school district approached the city, as they have in the past, whenever they look to expand their facilities. Those facilities operate as a conditional use, very similar to what we just approved for a general repair. A school district in institutional is a conditional use permit. And so the school district has plans to expand some of the outdoor space, playground equipment, pavilions, things of that nature on 3 of their elementary schools. 2 of the 3 are zoned appropriately and are entirely institutionally zoned. However, Washington School is not. You'll see shortly on the zoning map that Washington School has a few different zoning classifications, likely given how it's expanded over the last couple of years. And the future land use map that guides any rezoning also has a few different classifications, again, likely to how the school has developed. So you'll see on the right of the screen here and in your staff report that the comprehensive plan identifies in blue government public institutional, which is typical for schools, but also it identifies a park district as well as residential to the north, even though the entirety of that block is owned and operated and controlled by the school district. So from our standpoint, we looked at as this being a means to clean up this property so that it matches with its use as institutional, as well as it matching with the zoning as institutional. So we've instructed the school district to pursue an amendment to the comprehensive plan first, and then a rezoning to the property second. So this first one, item 4, is again to change the 3 classifications identified there into one classification of government, public, institutional district. I won't get into a ton of details here, but we've outlined the surrounding uses, most of which are residential in nature, which is very common with elementary schools, that they exist in the neighborhoods in which they operate. But the school itself is zoned institutional, and in our zoning district, we do regulate pretty heavily in terms of the uses allowed within an institutional district. You'll see the uses that exist nearby there, as well as the zoning classifications. Here's the zoning map that I referenced. The property to the north that's in the yellow is zoned R2. That is a separate parcel, but it's owned and controlled by the school district. And as part of this, we've asked the school district to eventually combine that parcel into the Washington School parcel, so it is basically one parcel here. And I take that back. There are a few homes located on the southwest corner of the lot that aren't, so it isn't entirely the city block, but pretty close to it here. There you'll see the existing zoning and the definitions. I'll go through that pretty quickly. In both looking at the comprehensive plan amendment and the rezoning amendment, which again I'm speaking to both of them, we'll have to have separate public hearings on them. But what we're trying to do here in both the comp plan and the zoning map is what's been done throughout the rest of the city. Again, a majority of elementary schools throughout the city have a land use planning classification as government institutional and are fully zoned institutional. So again, trying to clean it up from that standpoint here. And you'll see with the items after this, what exactly the school district is looking to expand on the property. I won't get into that now. But we do feel as though both the comprehensive plan amendment and the rezoning amendment are consistent within the context in which they operate within the neighborhood and are appropriate, and therefore are recommending approval. The comp plan has to be done first because the zoning has to be consistent with the comp plan, and then the zoning can be done thereafter. So again, we are recommending both ordinance amendment to the future land use map as well as rezoning to institutional. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Does the commission have any questions or comments right now? All right, so holding two separate public hearings, I'm opening up the first public hearing, item 4, which pertains to the future map. Is there anyone who wants to speak in favor or against at this time? Please step forward. If you could let us know your name and address, appreciate it.
Sure. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Gino Carlson. I'm with Point of Beginning in Stevens Point. Point of Beginning is the civil site designer for these school district properties. Just wanted to introduce myself ahead of all these agenda items and let the council know that I will be available to answer any questions that you may have about the properties themselves as we go through these items. Thank you.
Thank you. For a second time, anyone wish to speak for or against?
Ron Rasmussen, Superintendent for the Wisconsin Rapids Public Schools, 510 Peach Street. So we just look forward to bringing these projects and to benefit the students in our districts and the community. And just to let you know that I'm here if there are questions.
Thank you. And for a third time, anyone wishing to speak for or against? I don't know if I said I opened it at 4:20. I'm closing the public hearing at 4:22. Any questions or comments from the commission? Seeing none.
I'll make a motion to approve the amendment to the comp plan as presented.
I get a motion by Davin to approve the comp plan according to what was presented. I got a second by Tao. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it, 6-0. And pertaining to item 5, the zoning classification. Opening up the public hearing at 4:23. Anyone wishing to speak for or against, please step forward. Do you want me to read over this whole thing again, the number 5, before I get too far into the public hearing? All right. So item 5 is public hearing and action on a request from Wisconsin Rapids Public Schools to rezone 2911 Washington Street, parcel 3410239, Washington Elementary School from a mixed zoning classification of Park and Recreation P1 district and institutional I1 district to an institutional I1 district, and to rezone an adjacent unaddressed parcel 3410243 from a mixed residential R2 district to institutional I1 district. So restarting that public hearing. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and slow that down. Is there any questions on it, or do you want to add anything else, Kyle? All right. Any questions or comments before I open the public hearing? Okay. Then public hearing is opened at 4:24. Anyone wishing to speak for or against, please step forward. For a second time, anyone wishing to speak for or against, please step forward. And for a third time, anyone wishing to speak for or against, please step forward. Seeing none, I am closing the public hearing at 4:25 p.m. Questions or comments from the commission? Seeing none, what are your wishes?
Motion to approve with recommended conditions outlined by staff.
I got a motion by Palmquist to approve, a second by Marutz. Do you need any clarification? All right, I got a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Katie?
Aye.
Thank you. All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it, 6-0. Item 6. Okay, just for clarification, are we combining any of these or taking them one at a time?
We'll speak to them. We'll speak to them separately because
Okay.
they are 3 separate schools.
All right, sounds good. All right, item 6, public hearing and action on a request from Wisconsin Public Schools for a conditional use permit amendment to perform recreational site improvements at 2911 Washington Street, parcel IDs 3410239 and 3410243, Washington Elementary School. Mr. Kearns?
Thank you. So I'll preface that anytime a school is expanding or intensifying the use, they have to come in and get a conditional use permit amendment for that approval, which the Common Council regulates. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Liz for the next 3 items. Go ahead, Liz. Thank you.
Thank you. So the applicant is requesting to expand recreational facilities at the Washington Elementary School. Sorry. The applicant, can you hear me now? Is that good? Okay. The applicant's requesting to expand recreational facilities at the Washington Elementary School. Some of these improvements include installing new playgrounds, installing an asphalt path system, and installing a covered picnic pavilion. The site, as we discussed earlier, has a mixed zoning district classification of park and recreation district and institutional district. The unaddressed parcel to the north has a zoning classification of mixed residential R2 district. Educational facilities pre through K-12 are a conditional use in the institutional district. The site is surrounded by mixed residential R2 district and multifamily medium density residential R3 district. These recreational site improvements require an amendment to the conditional use permit, and a building plan, architectural review, plan of operation, site plan, and zoning permit are required. So as you can see on the screen, this is showing the site plan of some of the improvements. This is the northern section of the property. You can see a path to the upper right corner, and then to the lower left middle corner there's an overview of the playground that currently does exist on site. And then there's, if you go to the next page, this is showing more of like the middle of the property. You can see that the athletic fields that are existing, as well as additional path. And then there's one more. These plans are quite large, so this is just zooming in on the playground area. And these additional details are in the staff report and in the plans. So for the conditional permit standards of review, the total acreage of both parcels, which is about 34.5 acres, is more than sufficient to support the recreational site improvements. The sports facilities already exist on the property, so these improvements are compatible with the existing uses. The improvements will mainly occur within the existing playground area, while the other improvements will occur on the athletic fields. The proposed improvements will ensure that patrons remain primarily internal to the property and improve the efficiency of pedestrian traffic on site. Overall, the impacts to the existing green space will be minimal, as will the effects on the natural environment, and the use should not impede normal development or improvement of the surrounding area. Then site plan and architectural standards of review. The applicable dimensional standards appear to be met. There's new fencing and a picnic pavilion proposed, which will require separate building permits, and all of those applicable requirements shall be met. The improvements will not alter the ingress and egress of the site, and as the improvements are accessory in nature to the elementary school, they will not require increases to the parking under the code. Street frontage, building, and parking lot landscaping are not required, and an architectural plan is not required as the improvements are accessory. Lighting is not proposed for the site improvements, and therefore a lighting and photometric plan is not required. I will note that the properties are within the shoreline and shoreline wetland overlay districts, and there are DNR mapped wetlands on the site on nearly the entire contiguous parcel and a portion of the main parcel, but it is unknown if wetlands do actually occur on site. However, if these are present, they would likely only occur within the wooded area of the properties due to vegetation requirements, and where the athletic fields do currently exist, there is not any apparent wetland vegetation in that area. So with that, our recommendation is to approve with conditions. This is contingent on the previous approvals for the amendment to the city's comprehensive plan and to reclassify the parcels and rezone them to the institutional I-1 district. Applicable building and stormwater permit, state and local permits shall be required. Minor modifications to the plan shall be permitted and to be reviewed and approved by the Community Development Department.
Okay. Before I open it up to the public, any questions or comments from the commission? Seeing none. At 4:32, I am opening up the public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak for or against at this time? For the second time, anyone wishing to speak for or against? Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Steve Pickett, Wisconsin Rapids resident. I own the property southwest of this corner, 28th and Washington. I'm just wondering where on the school property are they planning to put this equipment? And how is rezoning the school going to affect my properties, if at all?
Kyle? Can you state your address? Sir?
1111 Grove Avenue, Wisconsin Rapids.
Thank you.
So you'll see on the map here behind you on the screen, this is the northern part of the main parcel as well as the northern parcel along Norton Street. What you see highlighted there are the improvements to the playground, and then you can see the walking paths that are proposed as well. So those improvements are north of the athletic fields as well as north of the school itself. As you shift further south here, you can see the school outlined in gray on the top left. There's not much to the south here other than the pathways surrounding the athletic fields there. And then I believe the pavilion there you can see as well outlined in gray. So those are the improvements that are proposed. Pretty minimal in terms of impact to the use, to the athletic field youth use as well as to the playground use or the recreational use. In regards to the question about rezoning, your property likely will not be affected in any way because the property is currently being used as a school, and the rezoning is more of a technicality, whereas it brings the zoning up to conformity with the use. So right now the use is technically existing within a residential district on that Norton Street parcel. While it's vacant, it's technically owned by the school and part of the school. So again, the rezoning is more so just to bring it into conformance with all the other elementary schools that exist within the same capacity throughout the city.
All right, thank you. And for a third time, anyone wishing to speak for or against, please step forward. All right, and at this time, 4:35, I am closing the public hearing and opening it back up to the commission with questions and comments. Seeing none, what are your wishes?
Motion to approve the conditional use permit amendment for the improvements as proposed, subject to the conditions outlined by staff.
I got a motion by Palmquist. Second by Tao. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Katie?
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it, 6-0. Thank you. Item 7, public hearing and action on a request from Wisconsin Public Schools for a conditional use permit amendment to perform recreational site improvements at 221 A Street North, parcel ID 3407777, Howe Elementary School.
So similar to the previous request, this is the applicant's requesting to expand the recreational facilities. These improvements include installing new playgrounds and installing concrete sidewalk and a patio area. The property is zoned institutional district. The site is surrounded by mixed residential R2 district. These requirements, or recreational site improvements, require an amendment to the conditional use permit. If we go to the next slide, this is showing the layout of these improvements, mainly occurring where playground already does exist in the north and alongside the school to the south. So the total acreage of the parcel, about 7 acres, is sufficient to support these recreational site improvements. And similar like the previous request, the use is already existing, so the improvements would be compatible. They occur within the existing areas where playgrounds exist, and the improvements ensure that the patrons will remain internal to the property. The effect on green space would be minimal, and effects on the natural environment would be as well. Site plan and architectural review, applicable dimensional standards appear to be met. As part of this request, there's new fencing, which will require a separate building permit. Altogether, the improvements will not alter ingress and egress. They'll be accessory in nature. They won't require increases to parking. Landscaping won't be required. An architectural plan is not required, and there's no improvements to lighting proposed. So with that, our recommendation is to approve with conditions, those being that applicable building and stormwater permits, state and local, be obtained. All required accessory structure and fencing standards shall be met, and minor modifications to the plan shall be permitted to be reviewed and approved by the Community Development Department.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the commission? All right, seeing none, let's go ahead and open up the public hearing at 4:39. Anyone wishing to speak in favor or against, please step forward. Second time, anyone wishing to speak for or against, please step forward. And for a third time, anyone wishing to speak for or against, please step forward. All right, then I'm also closing the public hearing at 4:39. Commission, any questions or comments? Seeing none, what are your wishes?
I'll make a motion to approve the conditional use permit amendment as outlined with staff recommendations.
I got a motion by Dobbin, seconded by Marutz. All right, any last questions or comments? Seeing none, go ahead and cast your votes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those, oh, sorry, Katie?
Aye.
Thank you. All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it, 6-0. Thank you. Item 8, public hearing and action on request from Wisconsin Rapids Public Schools for a conditional use permit amendment to perform recreational site improvements at 471 Grove Avenue, parcel IDs 3412499 and 3412469 Grove Elementary School.
So this request is similar to the previous ones. They're looking to install new playgrounds, install a disc golf course, an asphalt path around a soccer field, and a shade structure. It's zoned institutional district. It's an educational use facility, surrounded by mixed residential R2 district. If we go to the next slide, it's showing, this is the site plan of the proposed improvements. Most of them are occurring within the center of the property. This is 2 parcels, total acreage of which is about 14 acres, which is more than sufficient to support their recreational site improvements. The improvements will occur mainly on the existing playground areas, and there's not much else different about this one except just that there's a shade structure which will require a separate building permit. But like the others, no increases to parking, no landscaping required, and architectural plan not required. So with that, we recommend approving with conditions. One added condition here that's not in the staff report is that all required accessory structure standards shall be met.
All right, thank you. Initial questions or comments from the commission? Seeing none, I'm going to open it up to public hearing at 4:42. First time, anyone wishing to speak for or against, please step forward. Second time, anyone wishing to speak for or against, please step forward. If you would, let us know your name and address, please. Thanks.
My name is Bob Heschke. I live at 461 Clyde Avenue, and looking at that diagram that you had up there, you had that soccer career field right across from my house. What are you going to do about the parking? And I didn't understand that part.
Elizabeth?
These people or whatever soccer games they're going to have, is that just for the school, or is that for just all schools that come there to play soccer games? Or, I mean, I'm just worried about all the traffic in front of my house.
So this, the field is an accessory use to the school primarily.
I understand that, but
Yep.
the parking along there, you know, where are you going to put this asphalt parking for these people that are going to be, they're going to want to park along the road there.
Yeah, I would anticipate that this won't increase the parking demand for the school much at all.
So
It's
it's
tied.
during school hours, or is it during after school hours?
So I think the applicant here can better describe the use of the soccer facility.
The plan as you see it shows a striped soccer field. Really, that's intended more to just indicate the size of the area, and it's going to be just green space for use by the school. I mean, the green space that's on that school site already, I'm sure is available for community use. This is not going to be any sort of, specific, minor sports location. It's just green space. And we're illustrating that if the school wanted to, they could stripe it for, like an under 12 soccer game. That's all.
All right, thank you, sir. And for a third time, anyone wishing to speak for or against, please step forward. All right, thank you, everyone. Close the public hearing at 4:44. Open it back up to the commission. Questions or comments? Seeing none, what are your wishes?
Motion to approve the conditional use permit for recreationals with the staff recommendations.
I got a motion by Marutz, second by Tao. Any last questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Katie?
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, 6-0. Thank you. Item 9, public hearing and action on a request from the City of Wisconsin Rapids to amend Chapter 11 zoning ordinance, Article 16, landscaping and buffer yards. Mr. Kearns?
Thank you, Mayor. I do want to note that those conditional use permits, the rezoning and the code amendment related to the school districts will now advance to the Common Council on March 18th. So this was a recommendation by Plan Commission on all those items. They still have to go to the Common Council 3 weeks from now. Thank you.
Do you
Okay.
think the folks that needed to hear that heard that, or no? You'll touch base with Ron?
Yeah, we don't send out another notice, but I just wanted, given the amount of people that were here, I wanted just to share that there's technically another step for the approval.
Okay, thanks.
In regards to item 9, which is an amendment to our zoning ordinance specifically related to the text, we've been talking about this for some time, and we've been looking over the last couple of months here to make some major changes to simplify the process for new development and expanding development within the city. You'll recall that we amended our uses to allow staff to perform site plan reviews. Previously, that request passed, and that allowed for us again to quickly review those and further those developments rather than having to come before this body. We likewise took the same approach to landscaping. A lot of times landscaping has been difficult for both the small business owner as well as the large contractor to navigate through, given some of the cumbersome nature of our code. So we've done a lot of things to simplify that. The amendment has been attached, but I also attached a memo, which I hope you read, which actually summarizes what we're trying to do here. So I'm briefly just going to touch on some of the summary here rather than the whole thing, but I can certainly answer any questions. One of the first things we did was expand where a landscape or parking lot landscaping can be located. So we're amending one of the exhibits to incorporate areas on the periphery of the parking lot. Previously, it said it had to be internal to the parking lot, so that meant that people had to put in a landscape island, which would get in the way of snow plowing. Sometimes wouldn't have enough water depending on its size. So we're now allowing parking lot landscaping to be on the periphery of the parking lot. We've also allowed the zoning administrator in certain instances to allow for minor deviation to the point or classification of species. There have been times where maybe due to stormwater drainage or just the configuration of the site, they're not able to meet something. And I think, if they show in good faith that they're doing their best to meet it, but they can't, that staff has the authority to, in those instances, approve those. We also included a section on plant diversity as well as water adaptive vegetation, again, to ensure that plants that are being planted are going to be maintained and can exist in perpetuity, essentially, and aren't going to be planted in narrow strips and die out shortly after their planting. And then that they can be kind of shifted around, relocated, and offering a little more diversity to what can be placed. We've also replaced 16.2, which is a pretty large table, as I recall, with a very simplified version, removing a few plant types and kind of simplifying things in column headings. Before we defined all sorts of different tree types, and so we really simplified that to being a large tree, a medium tree, rather than deciduous, coniferous, all that. Taking it a step further, again, another zoning administrator approval to allow a lesser planting size. We are removing the minimum planting size table. We're making some changes to a credit for preserving trees and shrubs. Previously, if you had trees and shrubs on your property, it was based on caliper size and mature size. And honestly, we're not going out there measuring caliper size and mature size, so we try to simplify it where it's just a one-for-one credit. If you have an existing tree, no matter the size, it's a credit for one that would be required. Again, so making it both easier for the applicant as well as staff as we interpret the landscaping guidelines. Continuing on, we're clarifying buffer yards. So buffer yards exist to provide a buffer between two different types of uses. These have often been conflicting. There wasn't clarity on when they were required, so we've created that clarity, basically that any development, like let's say something on 8th Street that borders residential in the rear, they have to do this whenever they expand or if it's a new construction project. And then we've clarified the buffer types. Before there was a A-type buffer, B, C, D, and then there were different parameters within there, and it was just, again, too cumbersome. So I think the buffer yard is still kept, but we significantly clarified the types of buffers and then what's required when a buffer yard is in place. So you'll see determination of required buffer yard, when it's required, simplifying the language there. We simplified the width. We also identified sections for reducing the width when a fence or a berm are being used, which is frequent. We omitted another table that was cumbersome, Exhibit 16.8. For street frontage planting, we reduced the point requirement, so we did keep our point scale, which has been somewhat confusing, but I think with some of the changes we've made, that point scale we found out is what many other communities do. So if a landscape architect is doing a project in Point or Marshfield or Oshkosh, they have a point structure, and I think if we were to deviate from that point structure, it might be more of a hindrance because it's very common for other communities to have that point structure. So we kept the point structure, but we have reduced the point requirement, which should be less burdensome on businesses. We also recognize that in the industrial setting, in the industrial parks, they probably don't need as much landscaping, and I don't think it's as crucial in those areas as it is on 8th Street, right, in terms of frontage plantings or even building plantings. So we've allowed for reductions for those industrial uses pretty much across the board for street, building, and parking lot requirements. We also expanded the area that where for building foundation landscaping that you could classify landscaping. So previously it had to be right up by the building. Now we're allowing for a little more space to be planted in. And likewise, we did the same for, again, around the parking lots, which I alluded to initially. We're allowing for landscaping to exist within the perimeter of the parking lot area within a 15-foot area. With that said, you've got the entirety of the ordinance redlined in the packet. We don't have it up on the screen, but that was pretty much a summary. I'd be happy to point out any other section if it's questioned on how we're trying to simplify and improve it.
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
I have a question, Kyle or Lizzie. So when we say new construction projects that will be, these standards will be applied to, does that include somebody who's pulling a permit to repave their existing parking lot?
So let me back up. It is our intent next month, or possibly the following, I'd really like it to be next month in April, to address the driveway standards. So the section in regards to parking lot reconstruction falls under the driveway standard code. So I think at that time we'll make some amendments to reconstruction of parking lots. What this would apply to is new parking lots. So if Culver's wanted to put in a new lot, the portion of the new lot would need to meet these requirements, but not the old section. If Culver's were to put on an addition, the addition would need to meet this section. So with regards to building landscaping, the addition wouldn't need to meet this. If a new business, Starbucks, is building on a vacant lot, they would need to meet the entirety of this section. So regarding reconstruction, I think right now our code allows for, under the driveway section, it allows for a 25% total landscape requirement. So if total you needed 100 landscape points between building, frontage, and parking lot, The code right now says if you reconstruct a lot, you only need 25% of that, so you'd only need 25 landscape points. Next month, when we amend that standard, we'll likely keep that reduction. I don't know if it'll be 25% or less, but we're looking to clarify that too on when it's required, because that section has been a hindrance too. There have been certain businesses that have not reconstructed their parking lot because even small improvements that are a fraction of what it would be new is a hindrance, like for a car sales dealership that has pavement right up to the street, and they have a bunch of, cars that are there. If they had to change that parking lot configuration, put in landscaping, then it would significantly affect their business. So it's somewhat of a balancing act in which we're trying to improve the aesthetic and character of our major corridors, but we're also trying to lessen the burden on both our existing business and new business. And hopefully what we're providing both in this ordinance amendment and future ordinance amendments is kind of that common ground that balances both.
I agree, and I think thank you for the time that you and your staff put into this, because I think it's something that is very beneficial to our small business owners and anyone looking to come to Rapids to build a new business or expand on an empty business. So if there were a car sales lot that did apply by the previous standards, and now they have trees in front of their inventory, is there a way for businesses who had the old standards to come in and talk to you to have you approve changing them if need be to fit these new standards?
So they've already done the work though, and they're up to code. I would say then theoretically they could remove landscaping to come to today's lower standard if they wanted to. I don't know any instance that they would, but perhaps if they could gain another stall or two, I think we would, we'd need to see other things too, because there are other zoning requirements such as setbacks. There are other zoning requirements such as minimum lot size. There's impervious surface requirements. So there's other factors that come into play, but I think we would allow them to do that.
And by our changes now, they wouldn't have to come before this commission. It could be approved by your staff.
Correct. Right
Perfect.
now, yep. Right now, with the use amendments previously, all those site plan reviews occur internally, aside for some rare instances, one of which was earlier tonight with schools. Schools needed a conditional use still, and they needed site plan review at the plan commission level.
Excellent. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, I'm going to open it up to public hearing at 4:58 p.m. Anyone wishing to speak for or against, please step forward. Second time, anyone wishing to speak for or against, please step forward. And for a third and final time, anyone wishing to speak for or against, please step forward. Seeing none, I close the public hearing at 4:58 also, and open it back up to the commission for questions or comments. Seeing none, what are your wishes?
Motion to approve.
I got a motion by Palmquist to approve,
I'll second.
second by Davin. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, do our vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Katie?
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it, 6-0. Thank you. Item 10, adjournment. What are your wishes?
Motion to adjourn.
I got a motion by Davin, seconded by Zacher. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it, 6-0. Thanks, Katie. Thanks for being here. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Meeting closes at 4:59 p.m. Have a good night.